Our mission is clear: to bring to justice those responsible for the marathon bombing. The American public wants answers. The citizens of the city of Boston and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts want and deserve answers. This group of dedicated men and women standing before you today pledge to do everything possible to get those answers. This remains a very active investigation. Our ongoing investigation in various locations throughout the area goes on. However, there are no known additional threats.
Welcome back. Now, let's bring you up to speed on the latest in the investigation underway in Boston. And Dominic, what do we have here for an update?
Well, as of right now tonight, no suspects, no motives. Federal law enforcement officials have their hands full, as you would expect with a case like this, but the investigation is underway. President Obama continues to receive briefings from his national security team a day after 2 bombs went off near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. Today, the president called the attack a cowardly act.
Anytime bombs are used to target innocent civilians, it is an act of terror.
Investigators are analyzing the evidence, including the debris and hundreds, if not thousands, of photos and videos to find any clues.
We are in the process of securing and processing the most complex crime scene that we've dealt with in the history of our department.
We have now learned one possibility is the bombs may have been built from pressure cookers and then loaded with nails and ball bearings.
These were obviously deadly bombs, but I'm not convinced were designed to do a maximum kill. I think they were more designed to make a statement.
As investigators begin connecting the dots, another factor they may take into consideration is the date. Monday was tax day and also a state holiday in Massachusetts called Patriots' Day. April 19th, this Friday, will be the anniversary of 2 tragic days in our nation's history. On that day in 1993, a standoff in Waco, Texas between federal authorities and the Branch Davidian religious sect ended with 80 people dead, including 25 children. The same date 2 years later, the Oklahoma City bombing left 168 people dead. What's clear, Richard, investigators here are casting a very wide net.
And what you got from that press conference at 5 o'clock with Governor Patrick, Mayor Menino, and the agent in charge there was they're looking for help from the general public. And Pat, let me ask you, maybe it's because in recent attacks there's been claims for credit almost immediately, and that we identify, at least after 9/11, we knew who the bad guys were. In this particular case, as Dominic said, there's been no responsibility or credit, or however they want to frame it, for this. Right now, no suspects being held right now. We have no idea for motive. And it's been more than 24 hours. Richard said there's been patience right now, but how much patience in this kind of an investigation should the public assume? How long is it going to take to identify, in a ballpark, the people behind this?
It could take some time. You're right. In some of the other investigations, you've had claims, the other events, you've had claims of bombings and so on. It doesn't always happen that way, though. There have been instances where no one's claimed responsibility. So it's going to take some investigative work. The interesting part here is that we were talking about a little earlier, there's been no chatter, no intelligence whatsoever to identify this. So you can be sure that the Bureau, NSA, agency, they're going to be checking all of those intel channels to see if there's any chatter internationally to pick up something that would be able to point at a particular group.
In your experience, have credit's been taken if the terrorists tend to be international, even if they're falsely taking credit? Is silence following an incident like this a common thing?
One, but silence is more common than somebody claiming credit that really wasn't responsible for it. But just because a claim of responsibility comes in, you need more than that to be able to take it back. And that's why they're looking at the signature of the explosive device. They'll be trying to recover pieces of the explosive device to give them leads as to where to go, where those things came from, who could have potentially bought them. You know, a hardware store with video possibility, something to give them a suspect.
And while Richard mentioned this before, that we haven't, people have refrained here from taking too many guesstimates. Obviously, the pressing question is enemy from within or abroad. pressure cookers, this much at least we know, were used here. And in going through when they've most recently been used, we found in Pakistan, in India, in the Middle East. But you say don't read too much into that, right, with the advent of the internet.
Yeah, I wouldn't. With the internet out there, a lot of people today, the first thing they do when they hear of something is they Google it, and they're able to find a lot of information on the internet. No one can control the amount of information that's out there, and this information about how to build these devices is readily available.
You saw Brad Garrett make the mention that this was made more for possibly a statement than for maximum killing. And I've heard some people say very easily from where these were positioned, instead of 170 injured, and there's some serious injuries in addition to the 3 fatalities, it could be 170 dead right now because of the density of the people. You buy into that this thing could have been a lot worse?
It could have been worse if they were positioned differently, but whenever you have a device like that where there's shrapnel, this device, backpack bombs like this have been used in the West Bank.
Right.
The Palestinians have used it, where they include all this type of shrapnel to cause as much carnage as possible. Where they were placed may have not been the most ideal situation for that.
Isn't it also a question of timing that an hour earlier, when the streets were much more compact, many more people right in that area? That sounds like an act of intention then. If I'm speculating,
Yeah.
forgive me, but
They
could have set them off an hour earlier, and they didn't. What could one read into that?
You don't know. You don't know if it's because they couldn't get the device there in time. 9/11, if those planes would have gone in a little bit later, that there would have been more people in the tower. So there's a lot of things that can come into play to that. No one situation like that, no one piece of circumstantial type evidence can really lead you to a conclusion.
How about the dates, though? And even, you don't have to be a conspiracist theory to say that a lot has happened on this dates. We're going to bring up the graphic if we can now. Obviously, if you just look at the recent calendar, tax day, and the climate that we're in right now and all the heated dialogue surrounding it. But on Patriots Day and everything that it represents, we saw back on this date, Oklahoma City bombing. Same date, 2 years earlier in '93, the Waco siege. You go back to '99, Columbine shooting, and right around that time, the Virginia Tech massacre, even taking away the 2 school shootings. What has happened around this? Immediate questions about this day couldn't have just been random. This event, Patriots Day, and everything that it symbolizes, the randomness of it, it just seems too coincidental. If you were leading this investigation, how would you take the calendar aspect into it?
You always look at the calendar. Even in international terrorism, dates are very important to events when they take place. So you never eliminate what events have occurred around that particular date. When this first happened, and I'm still not convinced this is not a domestic situation. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it's not international. I don't know yet. There's not enough information out there to really draw that conclusion. So you don't eliminate any possibility when you're conducting these investigations. You look at the whole gamut. Your analysts are providing you with information coming back from other types of events. You're out there checking your intel sources. You're checking both your human intelligence sources and your SIGINT, your signal intelligence, as much as you can, trying to find some of those pieces that will give you those leads and point you in the direction that you need to go.
Last thing, I know we're heavy, but taking the layperson perspective out who maybe watches too many shows on TV or movies, in reality, apparently they've recovered nylon bags here that they think have connection. They've recovered some of the nails that were not, I guess, exploded from the pressure cookers. They think they have some physical evidence. And with all the cameras present, and now as I understand, and correct me, but with the advanced technology where you can triangulate the phone calls, that if there was a cell phone used even to detonate it, let alone any chatter, they can basically, if not recreate the calls, go back and figure out from points of origin to where they go. Is the location, with so much technology that was there and now the advanced technology to analyze physical evidence, is there a good chance that there's a lot to work with here?
Well, obviously, it's going to depend on how much physical evidence is there, and I can assure you the Bureau has very capable people working the forensic collection in this particular area. They'll look at fibers, they'll look at chips, computer chips, phone pieces, if there's phone pieces, there are
In fact,
timing
we're looking
devices.
at a live picture now right on Boylston Street, as I understand it, in Boston right now, where they're doing some of the forensics, I guess. And
Who are those guys? Are those your guys?
Can't tell. Usually the Bureau guys will have, there probably are. I mean, you always see forensic people dressed so that they don't contaminate a particular area. And you're seeing them in white suits and their shoes covered so they don't contaminate any material. It's very possible they're FBI. I can't tell from the picture right now if it is just Bureau personnel.
And within the Bureau, there would be technicians as well as agents.
Yes, but usually the forensic people are trained, and I guarantee you that some of the best forensic people are there. Some of the bomb tech people from Quantico and FBI headquarters would be responding to this type of situation.
It really, though, Pat, what I was even referencing is even in that picture, you can see that there's a camera fixed right in the corner of that building.
Right.
And my point is, in Boston, like every major metropolitan city, especially in the Northeast corridor, there's cameras on every major street corner in the downtown areas. The bags had to be placed there, and they had to be detonated in some way, shape, or form. Not to oversimplify it, but there are trails that would be left with video or even, I guess, cellular imprints, or am I oversimplifying it?
No, you're not, and they're going to be looking at all of that. But sometimes the photos you get from the cameras on the street are not that good. They're very grainy. It's hard to identify a person from that. But they're going to be looking at all that material, as well as, like I said, international communications to try to find those threads of information that's going to lead them.
And, you know, very properly, you look at that stuff. The investigative authorities could be hot on the trail of a particular suspect right now. They're not telling us, and that's the way it should be. That's right. This is a time for some humility about what you know and what you can say, without ruining the television.
Well,
show,
let's keep. Thank you, Richard. We're going to keep this conversation going. After the break, we're also going to bring in former Deputy Secretary for Public Safety for the state of New York on how citizenry, and that's a big part of this, can help prevent a tragedy like this one. And that old axiom of see something, say something, it might sound tired, but as we learn, it's more and more important. Please stay with us.
There is not yet an identified suspect. These are times when all kinds of forces sometimes conspire to make people start to think of categories of people in sometimes uncharitable ways. This community will recover and will heal if we turn to each other rather than on each other.